So this morning I want to take...
I got to turn my video off.
No worries. Thanks, David. I was just going to say, please make it an interactive session. Otherwise, I get a little bit bored hearing the sound of my own voice. So please ask questions as we go through. So I know James and I had a good chat a week or so ago. So I got some insight into some of the areas that the firm as an overall organisation is looking at from a software perspective. Just before I do jump into Karbon, has anyone besides James got any exposure to Karbon, seen any of our videos online, or is this completely fresh for David and Michelle and Peter?
New to me.
Okay.
New to me as well.
Okay. And Peter? Yeah. So, okay. So given that we've got a mixture of people in terms of who may or may not know much about Karbon. So just to give you an overview, Karbon is a workflow collaboration platform. So our focus is really about giving you the ability to have visibility and control of all of your resources in the firm, and also giving you the ability to look at how the firm operates from a systems and processes perspective, helping you systemize and automate those processes, as well as part of that collaboration piece, improving the communication both amongst your team members, but also the communication with your clients as well. We do that by having a deep integration with email. So I'm going to take you through Karbon this morning. As I said, please stop me and ask questions along the way if there's a particular area that you want me to delve a little bit deeper into, or what I'm talking about perhaps doesn't make sense. But Karbon, as I said, is a workflow collaboration platform. So we do that by a number of different areas, and I'll just give you a quick tour, and then I'll take you through a more detailed presentation. But what you're looking at the moment is our workflow collaboration platform. So this is our Kanban view of work. So in this view, we can see all of the work that's happening across the firm. The other key areas of Karbon is this concept of triage. So triage is what we refer to as the deep integration with your Microsoft Outlook or Office 365 platform. We also work on Gmail, and I'll come back to that in a little bit more. We also have an individual to-do list. So work is what's happening across the firm. To-dos is my own personal list of to-do items. Karbon also holds the database of all of your client contacts as well. So within Karbon, we'll keep a copy of some key information regarding your clients, including their name, their email address, and also the work that we're doing for them. Some firms do use Karbon as their source of truth, as their full database, and other organisations use Karbon purely from that workflow collaboration perspective. The other piece of Karbon that I'll delve into in a little bit more detail is the admin area, which contains the underlying systems and processes that drive Karbon. So each piece of work that we track and manage in Karbon typically has a documented list of tasks and processes behind it. So we have a library of what we call our workflow templates, which are templates that you break down into all of those processes and procedures within the firm as well. So I'll come back and talk about that in a little bit more detail. Just to give you some history of Karbon. So Karbon's a platform that's been around for about 4 to 5 years. We're initially, our founders, if you like, initially had a payroll product that they sold to Xero back in 2010, 2011. So if you've used Xero Blue and you've used the payroll module in Xero Blue, that was a product developed by our founders. So our founders are 2 Australian guys who then moved to the US with Xero and launched Xero in the US. And as I said, about 4 or 5 years ago, created Karbon. So Karbon's a global platform. We've got over 1,000 different accounting firms using us globally. We scale from your 1 to 5 sort of user firms right up to several hundred user firms globally as well. So we certainly cover the breadth and depth of the accounting segment. Our team is really made up of people with a lot of experience in the accounting industry. We have a team of developers who predominantly work out of Sydney, as well as team members across the US and also New Zealand. So we're quite a global company as well. So in terms of Karbon, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to kick off with triage, take you through the workflow process, and then also show you how we give you that visibility and control over all of your work. So as I said, triage is really a supercharged inbox, and all you're seeing here is a mirror of exactly what's happening within my Office 365 inbox. So if I read an email in here or I send an email from here, it's marked red within my Microsoft inbox as well. But the reason we built this was that when we started looking at workflow for accounting firms, we realised that a lot of the bottlenecks and a lot of the challenges actually happen in the inboxes of both partners, managers and team members in the accounting practice. So, you know, the communication with clients and the communication amongst team members was such a crucial part of workflow that we had to build a tool that systemised and made that more efficient. So triage, as I said, is a supercharged inbox. And a couple of things that triage does differently to your normal inbox is, first of all, you'll notice when I open this email, it's a normal email from Fred Smith, but straight away Karbon has already recognised the email address and matched this email to our clients. So Karbon will automatically file emails for you against your clients, but then it also gives you the ability to do some extra things. So if I'm looking at this email from Fred, the first thing I might do is I might decide that this is related to an existing job that we've got going for Fred as well. So I can quickly just tag this email to go to an existing payroll job that we've got on the go for Fred. You'll see now that this email has been tagged as being part of that payroll work. Now what that means is that any future emails back and forth on this email thread will be automatically stored against the timeline on that job. So if I click onto that job, it takes me into the job for this particular client, and it shows me all of the client correspondence that's happening on this particular job. And one of the reasons we built that was because we wanted to break down the silos of inboxes that happen in accounting practice. So if I'm the person who's managing the relationship with this client, if I'm the manager or the partner, I can, at any point in time, I can just quickly come in here to the timeline and see what's happening on this particular job, and I can see all of the team correspondence quite quickly and easily. In addition to that though, if I go back into that email, there's a couple of other things I can do as well. As I said, we've tagged it to be part of an existing job, but I also might want just to assign it to a team member to say, okay, well, I need some action take on this email. So quite quickly, I can just say to Sarah, you know, please follow up. And if need be, I can also set a due date for her as well. So I can say, let's get that done by next Monday, assign it and clear it. And now that email's been cleared out of my triage, and I know that Sarah's now got that on her to-do list and she can action it. What we can also do though off the back of an email is that we can look at this email, and again, I could be reading this and perhaps I'm not a senior person in the firm, but I do need some assistance on how to deal with this particular email. So within Karbon, we've built this collaboration tool that gives you the ability to add comment to other team members. So again, quite quickly, I could ask for some help of a particular colleague and say, you know, how should I reply to this? Excuse my typing. And then what happens now is that Pax and I can have this real-time collaboration conversation in context of this email, in context of the work that we're doing for the client. But the beauty is that none of these internal chats ever have any risk of being accidentally forwarded onto the client. But again, if we link this to a particular work timeline, if I go into that timeline now, all of that internal communication is stored on that timeline as well. So again, you've got the ability to quickly collaborate with team members in the context of the work that you're doing for the client without cluttering up your inbox as well. So the other benefit of using this add comment feature within Karbon is that clients tell us that it dramatically reduces the amount of CC'd emails and also the amount of forwarded emails within the firm as well. So last thing that I want to show you from a triage perspective is that if we get another email in from our client here, and this is an email from Abigail Silvers, what I might decide here is that this is actually going to be the start of a brand new piece of work for that particular client. So I can quickly come in here, select one of our existing templates. So again, I can put in here a title. Within Karbon, we also give you the ability to put some meta tags against each of the work items. So again, I can tag this as a particular type of work. So if I say it's going to be a BAS type of job, at this point, I can assign that responsibility to someone. I can also put a start date. So let's say that I'm going to get it done today, and then I'm also going to get it done by, say, the end of the month. And quite quickly now, I'm creating a new piece of work. Within our templates, though, we also recognise that if you're tracking a piece of work through a firm, it often passes through multiple hands. So you can identify that the steps in the process, and this is what Karbon's asking me here, is that who do I want to do the admin steps? For the sake of this example, I'll allocate that later, but quite quickly we can create a brand new piece of work off the back of an email. So again, if I come in here, I can now see that new piece of work that we've created for Abigail Silvers, and I can see the list of tasks that are associated with that particular step. So before I jump into the workflow piece, is there any questions on triage?
I have a question. So if we're running that off Outlook, do we look at our Outlook, or do we just go straight to that? Does everything from Outlook go into that area?
So really good question. So the ideal scenario is to even work within Karbon. So you do all of your emails within Karbon. And we've also got an iPhone app and an Android app, so you can do all this activity off the mobile as well.
Oh, okay. Yep. Good.
And as I said earlier, you're only dealing with things once, because whatever you're doing here is reflected within your Outlook or your Office 365.
Yeah, because you don't want to be double handling, that's right.
James, I've got a quick question. When you assign it to somebody else, so you got a list, and I may have missed this, you got a list of who you've assigned to what and the status that it's at.
Yes.
And what prompts them to get back to you? Let's say you want to get it done in a week. What prompts them to get back to you in a week, or how?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I will cover that when I go through the view of work and also the view of individuals to do. So they get prompted both if they get assigned a piece of work, and they also get prompted if they get assigned a to-do.
Okay, thanks.
So they'll actually get a notification in their triage. So it's actually a really good point. One of the things you can quickly see in your triage is if you've had any mentions or if you've got any notifications as well. So I know we use Karbon internally, for example. So the first thing I do often in the morning is just see whether I've had any notifications or any people requesting additional information from me. So you've got the ability to filter amongst those as well. All right, so I'm just going to, I'm now going to jump into the workflow template. So as I said, when you create a piece of work within Karbon, we have the underlying workflow templates, and these are all stored, as I said, here in the admin part of the system. So you end up with a library of your standardized workflows and procedures, and these are completely tailorable, customizable to the firm. You can build them from scratch, or you can access our library and modify them, whichever you prefer. But each of these standard workflows give you the ability to, as I said, to really systemize the way things happen across the firm. So if I go back into the one that we've actually, before I jump into the one that we've created, I just want to highlight one of the automation features that we have. So one of the automation features we have is this concept of client tasks. So again, when we looked at the communication piece associated with workflow, one of the challenges in any accounting firm is the fact that often chasing up clients for information. So what client tasks enable you to do is to automate the process of requesting information from your clients. And you can build these into any stage of the process, whether it be at the start or the end of the process or the middle. It's completely up to you. But what you can do is determine when these activities happen. So, for example, you might decide for a BAS that you want to automatically email out a checklist to your client, 10, 15, 20 days before the scheduled start date of that work. Similarly, you might want to, for an annual set of accounts, send it out 30 days in advance, completely up to you. But the system here will automate that process for you, and I'll show you exactly how that works. So if I go back into the job we created just before, and I'm going to jump into the tasks, there's a couple of things that we've automated as part of this process. So as I said, we've got client tasks. The other thing we've done is, you notice here we've got this sort of little lightning bolt. So one of the things we identified when we built out a workflow platform was that it's got to be easy to use and it's got to be easy to maintain. So, you know, anyone can go use a checklist. They can go use tasks in Outlook, but we all know the reason why that doesn't work is because people don't maintain it. Whereas in Karbon, we've automated that process. So as people are allocated tasks and complete them, it will automatically update the status of the work for you. And that's what these automators are here to do for you. Similarly, as I said, we've built in this concept of client tasks where we can automate the process of capturing information from our clients. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to get the system to do that straight away for us. So I'm going to select it, I'm going to send these client tasks to Nick Adams. You've got control over who the email comes from, whether it be the person who manages the relationship, the person who's actually doing the job, or it could be any other person within the firm. You've also got within Karbon an automation to do reminders. So within Karbon, you've got the choice of sending gentle reminders, which are weekly. You can also send urgent reminders, which are daily, which a lot of firms don't do because you might annoy your clients, but you've also got the ability of custom reminders as well. So custom reminders, I've got set at 4 days, for example, here, but you know, you can modify that as well. You've also got complete control over the reminder email as well as the email that gets sent out as well. So now you're going to trigger the system to automatically send that email. Now, because Karbon automatically captures emails, I can go into the timeline and see the email that's been sent out to Nick. I'm now going to show you what Nick goes through when he receives this email. So this is the email that Nick has received. He's got a hyperlink, which is more secure than email to log in. We manage the whole PIN number for you. He will securely log in. He's got the checklist that we've asked him to complete. He's also got the ability to upload additional files. So if you've requested information that they need to upload, that's not a problem. You can tick that he's done what we've asked, but importantly too, you can also message us back and say, please check this is correct. You can add that comment, and then once he's finished, he can log out. So if I now go back into that job and I look at the tasks, I can now see that those client tasks have been completed. So we'll get notified of that in a couple of ways. One is it will appear here on the task, but if we also go back into my triage, I get a notification that Nick has completed a task, and he's also sent me a message. I can just quickly reply back to Nick to say, yep, that's fine. But you notice that these ones are pink, so we're making it clear that these are communications back to the client. But again, if I now go into back into that task list, I can also see the full communication in there as well. So within these task lists, as I said, these are how you determine that you want people to track and maintain the work going through your firm. We also give you the ability to differentiate between tasks that you want to be triggered as a to-do that someone has to check off that they've done, and that's what this one here is. Plus, we also have a concept of subtasks. So you might have a very experienced team that knows how to do BASs, so you don't need them to check off every step, but you just from a quality assurance perspective, you want to have all the steps listed. So these ones here are what we call subtasks, and they won't create a to-do for the individual who's been allocated this work. The other thing that Karbon does is that when you build these templates, we build them based on role types. And the benefit of doing that is that we can then allocate them to people as the jobs come through, and we're not so much dependent upon individuals doing it. You can also set the steps to be sequential in terms of when they should be done. So this step, for example, can be due X amount of days after the start date, for example. So again, you've got complete control and flexibility. Also, what we recognise is that as much as we've got master templates for the firm, we also have the ability to come in here and say, you know what, we don't need this particular step for this particular client. So you can actually tailor it for the individual client. The other thing we've got here too is that this is a BAS. So obviously, BASs are a reoccurring piece of work. So any work within Karbon, you can also set up a reoccurring schedule, and you can pretty much slice and dice that whichever way you want. So for this case, it's going to be a BAS. I could set an end date if I want, or I could just leave it. But Karbon will always set up the next 3 recurring jobs for you. Again, I can set the due date. So the due date could be X amount of days after the start date, or it could be X amount of days after any particular sequence there as well. You make sure that those dates don't fall on the weekend, and you can also allocate them as well at this point as well. So I'm going to quickly create that recurring work. So now if we go back into that work item, I can see all of those recurring jobs, and I can also see that the tasks are there as well. So the other thing that we also do as part of this process too is we have some details about the job. So at both a template level and at an individual job level, you can set a budget within Karbon, both on a dollar perspective and also on a time perspective. We can allocate who the team members are. And the other thing we'll do is that Karbon will automatically capture any documents that are emailed in that are tagged to the particular work item as well. So again, you don't have to rely on team members to remembering to save documents throughout the process. So that's the overview of the workflow templates. Any particular questions on the workflow templates?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if it's actually applicable to the workflow templates, but if you've got some team members who are quite good at self-management, and then others that, you know, if you send them a request or you assign them something to do, but they just don't update at their end, how does that work? Do you get like a reminder that it hasn't been done, or what's the story?
Yeah. So that's the next step I'm about to go through.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But there is a few triggers there to ensure they keep them up to date.
Yeah. Okay.
Certainly, the one thing about Karbon is that it's not a tool you look at once or twice a week. It's a tool that you live in on a daily basis. So
yeah,
the visibility of where all the work is up to is something that's real time and visible in the system. So if you're leading or managing a team and you're having regular, whether you're doing weekly workflow meetings, or some firms do what they call daily huddles, any of those types of scenarios, if you're doing it live in Karbon, you'll be able to see exactly where things are up to and hold people accountable if they're not actually, completing what they're supposed to complete.
Yeah. Okay.
Was there another question as well, I thought? No. Cool. All right. So so that's work. The other thing you'll see here is that Karbon will sort of let you know how far through the process we are. But here's where we get the true visibility over where all the jobs are up to. So I'm just going to make this screen a little bit bigger for you. So within Karbon, as I said, all of the work items are kept up to date real time. And I can see here exactly what work I've got on from a practice level perspective and where it's up to. So at the moment, we're looking at all of the work across the firm. And in Karbon, you've got a couple of different filters. I've got a filter button here, and I've also got a filter button here. So I can also show the details. So now I can see, based off those budgets, exactly how much work we've got. So from a capacity planning perspective, this is really quite useful. I can see the volume of work that we've got coming down the pipeline. I can see whether I've got peaks and troughs in any particular month. But I also might want to change this around and say, okay, I want to have a look at it by team members. So this filter over here controls what columns we display. So at the moment, we're displaying work by due date across the whole firm. I'm now going to toggle that round to say, I want to have a look at it by team member. So quite quickly now I can get a view of how much work each team member's got on. And again, because I've got the details of all the budgets in there, I can quickly see that Andy is absolutely overworked at the moment. She's got a stack of jobs on, whereas Andy Biggs and Frank have only got 16 and 17 jobs each on. The blue line here will designate how far through each job is, so I can quickly at a glance see which jobs have progressed, which ones haven't particularly moved far. So at this point, I might want to just quickly grab one that hasn't started and reallocate it across to Frank from Andy. And it's as simple as that. It's warning me that we're going to reassign those tasks. I can say that's fine. And quite quickly now, I've done some resource planning. I've reallocated work across the team members. But I can also, continue to dig a bit deeper. So at any point in time, I can drill directly into one of these jobs, and it'll take us back to that tab that I was on before. But similarly, you might now want to say, okay, well, let's have a look at all that work by status. So I can now have a look at work based on the status across the whole firm. And again, this gives me some insight as to where things are up to, because I can now see the various stages of where work is up to. I can also look and see where the bottlenecks are. And again, it might be that we've got a stack of work here that's in plan that hasn't progressed to ready to start, and I can investigate as to why that is happening and why it hasn't progressed across. Similarly though, as I said, we've got some additional filters here. So I can now start doing some more interesting things. I might want to have a look at it and say, well, let's have a look at it based on particular start dates. So I can look at stuff that's starting this week, next month, or I might go for a specific date range between now and say, the end of next week. So quite quickly I can zero in and focus on a particular area of the workflow that's important to me. At any point in time where I build or create a report that I like, I can quickly just come in here and save it. That means next time when I want to come and grab a report, I can just come through and grab any of the ones that I've previously created. The other thing I can do is, if I just clear that filter for the moment, I can also switch this around to more of a spreadsheet type of view. So we know that accountants love Excel and they love spreadsheets. So we've created a spreadsheet view for you. So I can come in here, and this is also a good way to look at if you need to quickly update stuff. So I can come in here and have a look at dates. If I need to change due dates, I can move it to next week, for example, quite quickly. So this is a good way if you want to update dates in bulk. And again, you've got the same information across the board as well. The other thing we can do is in these filters, I'll just flip this back to Karbon. The other thing we can do in these filters is, we might want to zero in just on a particular work type. So you may recall when I was creating that work before that I narrowed it down to a particular work type. I can now just have a look at the status of our BASs, for example. So again, you can pretty much slice and dice the view of work any particular way. The question earlier was, how do I check that a team member's accountable? I can even just look at a particular team member's work. So I might just want to have a look at a particular team member's work. I can now see where Richard's work is up to at any particular point in time, and have a one-on-one with that person if need be to check where their work is up to. Many different ways, as I said, we can look at this. So some of the people on this call have got multiple offices. So again, within Karbon, we can build out team views of work. So I might want to have a look by a particular office. So again, I can build a Brisbane team, have a look at the work associated with just that team. Similarly, you might want to build a team view based on a direct manager. So you can certainly look at it by team groups, if you like. You also might want to look at it by client group. So I can have a look at just a particular client group and see the work that's on for that particular client. So complete visibility and control over where work is up to, really easy to allocate and manage, plus you've got that capacity planning view of work as well. Just going to pause for a moment. Any questions on the Karbon view of work there?
Sorry, I have another question.
That's good. I like questions.
So this is all dependent, though, it doesn't flow on from our other accounting programs that we use. It's dependent on the staff entering in what they're doing for that client. Is that correct? Or
not really? So in terms of setting up Karbon, it's actually, from a user perspective, it's really easy, right? So where the setup, if you like, of Karbon is really just about identifying the workflow processes in the firm. So the majority of the configuration in Karbon is setting up these workflow templates. From a user's perspective, all I really need to do is focus on what I've been allocated to do.
Right, so you go in and you click what you've got to do, and then it shows up in the system. Yeah.
So I'll go through to-dos in just a moment, but from a general user's perspective, all I've got to do is look at where stuff's up to. I could even use, I can have my own view of my work here, and I can use this to say, well, that one's actually been moved to that status. So it's easy for people to maintain it and use it.
How does it tie into our existing database, or do we have to set up?
What database are you using?
We use APS, but the other offices, I think, use Sage and other programs as well.
Yeah, so we've got, we can sync your client contact details with APS and also with Sage Handysoft. That's not a problem.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
But what the way that the firms use it is that this becomes the workflow management tool that people are using it. So
right, yeah.
if you think about whether you're doing it in spreadsheets at the moment or whether you're using the job list in those tools, most we've got firms that will testify to the fact that this is a hell of a lot easier to use.
Okay.
James, any thoughts or comments for you in terms of work? Is that
actually? I was just going to have one quick question. Small jobs, like an ad hoc type job that you don't have a template for or anything like that. How do you manage something like that?
Yeah, so you can still do that. So you can still certainly do ad hoc jobs. So you can also look at what we call, this is just to show where there's little to-dos basically. So you can get a view of to-dos. But what you can also do in here is in to-dos, I can also get a view of any to-dos that I've assigned to someone. So to-dos are what we refer to as those little jobs that you don't really have to have steps or processes to track.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
David, any questions from you at the moment?
No, I'm intrigued. I'm not used to something like this. We use APS, and Michelle does most of the workflow. So I'm just looking down on it, if you know what I mean. So I'm pleased she's asking lots of questions.
Good. No, feel free to ask more questions. So as I said, I realise particularly if it's the first time you've seen it, it's a slightly different concept to get used to. So the last piece of the puzzle is as I said, the individual team member ends up with their to-dos. So they can look at it from my to-do list, and again, they can filter in so that this isn't too overwhelming. So they can either look at what emails have been allocated to me. And the beauty of using Karbon to allocate information is that if I do have to do anything with a particular email, the actual email appears in my to-do list, and I can reply and do whatever I need to from here as well. So it's a normal email type functionality as well. The other thing from a to-do list perspective is that they could look at it in a couple of different ways to suit their own particular style. So I might want to look at it by status. So I can just look at stuff that's in progress at the moment. And again, I can see the different stages that are there. I might also want to see perhaps by client. So again, I can just say what work I've got on by particular clients as well. So very quick and easy for people to look at what their jobs that they've got to get done as well. So very customizable from that perspective. Just a few of the background things that I want to take you through as well. So particularly, people like yourself, Michelle, if you're in charge of managing workflow, then this is an area that you would have access to. Team members wouldn't typically have access to settings. This is like the admin administrator access area. So within here, as I said, we've got a full library of templates that you can have access to, plus you can build and create your own. The other thing that you've got here too is control over how that work is tracked and managed within the firm. So within Karbon, we have 5 mandatory statuses, but all of these additional statuses are completely customizable per firm. And you can also be even more customizable to say, well, within our firm, these are the steps that we want to track from a BAS perspective. And for example, they might be different to the steps that you track for your annual accounts, for example. So again, you've got that ability to tailor it to your particular workflows. Some of the other configuration options that we've got here. So you've got the ability to control all of your team members. So again, you can create different teams. So you saw during the presentation that I searched on the Brisbane team. I could also set up teams by function. The other good piece of that is that if I go back into one of these work items, and I did forget to do one little piece here, is that you can use it to mention a whole team at once. So if I've had a meeting and it's relevant to the bookkeeping team, I can tag that the bookkeeping team will get notified straight away as well. One of the other things that's really useful on timelines is the ability to post a note. So, if you've had the face-to-face meeting with the client, you come in here, type your notes as to what happened. And as I said, you can mention a whole team at once, or you might want to just mention a particular team member to say, hey, these are notes I took, and just an FYI. The other thing we can do here is that if if we're adding notes to a timeline and it's a really important note, think about the old-fashioned sticky note on the front of the manila folder or just inside the manila folder. We can actually pin this to the top of the timeline as well. So this is actually a really good tool to store critical information at the top of that piece of work for the team members as well. So that's a quick overview of Karbon. Is there any areas you'd like me to dig a little bit deeper into? You've got specific questions over?
I think you've covered everything for me, thanks.
Okay. So in terms of, just to summarise, I guess this is where you get that visibility and control over seeing what works up to. Triage is that interface that makes you more efficient in terms of the way that you communicate with clients, because we've got both that at mention feature and then also the ability to automate emails as well. So, we also do offer a free trial as well. So if you did want to trial it or test it, we're certainly happy to assist you with that. We also, I'll send through some follow-up emails, but we've got a great library of testimonials from clients, and certainly there's plenty of firms you can have a chat to who've been happy customers if you want to find out what people think of Karbon as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Richard, for sharing Karbon with us, and for those who have dialed in to hear it firsthand. We'll be distributing the recording of the session to remaining stakeholders, so they can certainly get an insight into Karbon, what you've presented today.
And certainly, don't hesitate to follow up with any additional questions that you might have. In that follow-up email, I'll also send links to recordings of some demonstrations on our website. So there's a little 2-minute overview video, plus there's a more detailed 15-minute one as well. We can look at that as well.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Richard. And thanks, Medora's team, for...
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.